Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charles the Bandsman, and welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And folks, we got a hell of a show in store for y'all today. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video, sub to the channel. Also, sign up to our free newsletter, brand new newsletter. It's called Champions Digest, where you get free weekly updates, no nonsense takes on basketball every Sunday in under 5 minutes. So make sure you do that. And also make sure you follow me on Instagram. My handle is CTABANZ. So let's get into this topic here. So, for whatever reason, man, people seem to be liking some of these political shows that we do. Now, some people dislike it, and I can understand it. Politics is very, very polarizing. Some people like, Charles, I don't understand. I don't understand why all of a sudden you're discussing these things. Well, there are a lot of things going on in the world, and I just have an opinion on them, right? And I want to share some of my thoughts. Sometimes people agree with me. Sometimes people disagree with me. But these things that I'm talking about are things that I think about, watch throughout my day. It just so happens that I don't share them because I only talk sports. But I said, hey, let me just try to, express my thoughts on some of these issues. And if people like them, fine. If they don't, they won't. And obviously, I'm open to, criticism, constructive criticism, where you guys think I can get better. So I welcome all of that. But anyway, Stephen A. Smith, right, recently went on The View to talk politics. Why they would invite Stephen A. Smith to The View is beyond me. But nevertheless, he went there, right? So he goes on The View. They're talking about the Democrats and all of this. Then they get to his comments that he made about Democratic Senator Mark Kelly, where Stephen A. Smith went on this tirade on his show Straight Shooter over the comments that Senator Mark Kelly and some of his colleagues made, where they were essentially saying to the military members, you don't have to follow unlawful orders, right? Seems pretty rudimentary, nothing confusing about it. But for Stephen A. Smith, somehow, some way, he managed to contort the meaning of what Mark Kelly was saying and then turn it into, you're telling troops to defy the president of the United States. And most of us were sitting here absolutely bewildered at the things that Stephen A. Smith was saying. So he made a lot of headlines for those comments. We did a show about it. So one would have thought, well, when he goes on The View, maybe he's had time to kind of think about it, hear some of the pushback, hear people trying to correct him and say, no, I think you misinterpreted what this guy was saying. What he said was pretty clear. You just took it in a totally different direction. But in typical Stephen A. Smith fashion, he then decided to double down on his comments. Take a listen to what this guy said on The View here.
And you had some really sharp criticisms of Democrats in the election for having sort of lost touch with the issues the voters cared about.
Yep.
How are you feeling now, a year into Trump? And what do you make of this discussion around affordability and him saying it seems like it's a scam from Democrats?
Well, that's rhetoric on his part. There's nothing surprising or unpredictable about that. You could see that coming from a mile away because he has to say that right now because it's an issue and a concern for the American people. And he wants to act as if there is no concern because everything he's doing is just so beautiful and so marvelous and what have you. But in the end, the Democrats give the credit where credit is due at this particular moment in time. I think that they've learned from some of their mistakes anyway. When you see what happened in New York with Mamdani, when you see what happens in New Jersey with Cheryl as the governor, when you see what happens with Spanberger in Virginia, clearly there's something that's going on within the Democratic establishment that's saying, let's focus on real issues that are pertinent to the American people. Let's make sure we articulate ourselves appropriately so we don't lose sight of what the message should be. Leading up to the election, they did just that, and I thought they handed him the election as opposed to him actually winning it. Now they're forcing him to play ball and figure out a way to beat them because they're coming and they're gaining some momentum. We'll see what happens.
Now, let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. Okay. Now, given the fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when I said it.
You want to stay loud and wrong?
Well, you could call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
Okay.
Here's the reality of the situation. First of all, I don't give a damn what Pete Hegseth has to say because I will tell you right now, he was never qualified for the job. When you talk about DEI and eradicating that, excuse me, what was he doing hosting Fox News on the weekend and all of a sudden he's the defense secretary? Please, give me a break. I don't care what he has to say. Let me get that out the way. As it pertains to Mark Kelly, what I was talking about is military. What I did was get on the phone with family and friends who have served in the military. And I said, we're not civilians. This is not the court of law. You can be implicated for implying something if you are a former military member or you are a present military member. It wasn't what Mark Kelly said. It's the fact that he was a combat Navy pilot who served in the military who would tell folks, ignore an order when it could get them in the
He
order.
did not say
I said
ignore.
illegal. I said illegal. I'm talking about illegal. I understand that.
He said you don't have to follow an unlawful order, and that is in the military code of conduct.
And I'm saying to you, hold on, which I'm aware of.
But it didn't sound like you were aware of that.
Well, no. I disagree with you.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
I had two governors, by the way, text me to tell me I was wrong, and they agree with you.
You are wrong.
I had two senators that reached out to me and said, you weren't wrong at all.
Well, Mikey Sherrill did say that the reason they felt the need to put that out is they were constantly being approached by people in the military saying, we're being put in really uncomfortable situations.
But
that to me is a little more relatable when you're a veteran yourself.
But I'm saying let me say this real quick.
You got to do it real quick. Or wait till we come back.
All I'm saying is this. If you're a member of the military, I'm looking at the soldiers as saying, don't get yourself in trouble. Let somebody else do it. Don't you do it because it ain't going to work for you.
Excellent. So you heard his comments, right? Now, as you guys know, D.L. Hugley is not a fan of Stephen A. Smith. And let me just say this, right? I understand that there's some people, let me not be presumptive here, but there's some people on our show that are not a fan of D.L. Hugley and all that, which is 100% fine. I'm not here advocating for D.L. Hugley. However, I'm reacting to what he said as it pertains to Stephen A. Smith and the nonsense that he's been saying on this particular issue here. So I came across a clip here, which was like an amalgamation of things that D.L. Hugley was saying in response to Stephen A. Smith. And he basically baptized this dude, bro. Like, he absolutely laid the gauntlet down. So for those of you who didn't hear what D.L. Hugley had to say in response to Stephen A. Smith's comments on The View and on Senator Mark Kelly, want to play what he had to say for you now, and then we're going to come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to D.L. Hugley here.
And in response to that, of course, you see Sonny Holston read what Pete Hegseth, the current Secretary of Defense, said, or Secretary of War, said.
Now, let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief.
Okay. Virtually the same thing that Senator Kelly said that sparked Stephen's rant on his social media page. It's ironic that the first thing Stephen A. would do would to be assail Hegseth's resume. Well, basically saying, he was a podcaster who became Secretary of State. What the ironic thing is Stephen A. Smith is a broadcaster who thinks he can be president. But the fact that being loud and wrong, when given a chance with new information to make a different decision, to be nuanced, what he decided to do was double down. And it's interesting because he believes, obviously, that being loud and wrong is leadership. But being loud and wrong is the sole province of old white dudes. They're the only ones who are going to get to be loud and wrong. In my estimation, this is the tale of two black men. One, of course, is Stephen A. Smith and his assessment of the situation. The other is Admiral Alvin Hugley, a black man who was a four-star admiral who was basically in charge of South Canada. This would have been his area, the Caribbean. Allegedly, Admiral Hugley was given an opportunity. He was basically told by Pete Hegseth what he wanted to do. And this admiral, who had been in the Navy 37 years, achieved the highest rank possible, decided rather than to obey an order he was conflicted by, that he believed was problematic, that he believed might have even been illegal. Rather than do that, he walked away and resigned. This is a tale of two black men. One who believes that being loud and wrong is leadership, Stephen A. Smith. And one is Admiral Alvin Hughley, who believes that refusing to do wrong is leadership. In this world, where the loudest voice in the room, where people commit to a path and decide hell or high water, we're going to go this way regardless of what damage it does. In this world that exists like that, don't be a Stephen A. Smith. Be an Admiral Hughley.
Excellent. So you heard his comments. What are my thoughts about this? I don't think D.L. Hughley is breaking any ground by pointing out the fact that Stephen A. Smith was clearly wrong on this issue, right? I think the point he was talking about was more of a character issue with Stephen A. Smith. And look, D.L. Hughley's had issues with close friend to the channel, Marcellus Wiley, who I'm cool with too, right? So I'm not here picking any sides or anything like this, but as it pertains to his comments to Stephen A. Smith, I think he's saying, beyond the black aspect of it all, I just think that Stephen A. Smith has a hard time with being wrong. I think he struggles with being wrong. Even if you listen to him on The View, when they brought up the question, he got very, very defensive. And people like him, when they're wrong, especially on issues like this, they double down. Now, let me tell you why I think he got very defensive about this. Clearly, politics is not Stephen A. Smith's wheelhouse, right? And when you feel like you may not be 100% good at something, or you know that there's some insecurities there, you tend to be defensive about that thing when people bring it up, right? It's just a natural thing. If they said, oh, this and this about his sports take, he wouldn't react the way that he did, right? But in this case, he's defensive about it. Why? Because he hears what people are saying about him. Punch up Stephen A. Smith and politics and see what the vast majority of people are saying about him. The vast majority. Most people are saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. And the platforms that invite him on, like maybe Valuetainment, Sean Hannity, oh my God, the Chris Cuomo show, I forgot the name, News Nation, they, I believe, are inviting him for him to make a spectacle of himself. I think at the end of those shows, I don't think any of these guys take him seriously whatsoever. But they know it's going to be great entertainment. So they let him sit up there and run his mouth. That's essentially what they do. Look, we are living in serious times in the United States. Serious times. You have some Americans that are 100% behind the administration and the tactics that they're using, and they feel like the president has a mandate to do what he said he was going to do during his presidential campaign. Whereas you have other Americans that are like, okay, we understand that you're the president, but you need to operate within the law. All right. No one is taking it away from you that you're the president of the United States. No one is, right? At least not now, unless in the midterms, if the Democrats do very well, they may try to impeach him, but that's a totally different thing. No one is taking that away. But you have to act lawfully, right? So when you listen to the president's reaction to what Senator Mark Kelly said, it was like, how dare you try to define me? And that kind of plays into some of the fears that a bunch of Americans feel about this administration. That's really what's going on here. So when you have a guy like Stephen A. Smith that's just up here making noise and hollering and screaming about things, people are going to push back on him, right? Beyond the fact that he's a black guy with Republican, beyond that fact, it's like, bro, these are serious times that we are living in. So when you have a senator saying, I believe who served in the Navy, saying you must follow the rule of law and you are within your rights to disobey unlawful orders, you can't be the guy jumping out here and trying to chastise the senator for saying the correct thing. We can ill afford to have voices like this propagating these kind of views to the we can ill afford to have it happen. These are serious issues. We're not talking about Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. These are serious matters. So we need to be very thoughtful about the things that we say. We are living in the era of where people just say flippant things and gain audiences. This is where we are. Whoever says the most egregious, the most flippant thing usually now gains traction. And you see it on both sides of the aisle. You see people grifting on the left. You see people grifting on the right, playing into some of the fears of those on the far right and the far left. It's happening everywhere. So what we need now is some common sense and people that are out there to give an honest take on what the truth is, not just up there hollering and screaming and trying to get ratings and trying to make headlines, because I said this is what we don't need. We simply do not need this, and we need to be calculated and measured in the things that we say. In the case of what he said here, I don't understand what point he feels he's defending. The first show that we produced about it, I asked the people, if you have ever served in the Army or currently serving in the Army, the Navy, whatever, please weigh in on this issue and let us know, the audience I'm talking about, for our own edification here, are you meant to obey unlawful orders? Almost every person that's either served, man and woman, or currently serving, they all said no. All of them. So what are you talking about? But I think what happened was Stephen A. Smith is so desperate to appease the president. It's almost like as if he feels he's going to give him like a seat in his cabinet or something. Like it's so much. Usually when you have people like this twerking it up for a particular politician, they're looking to gain something in return. Maybe a favor, maybe they need a bill passed that would help their business, whatever. But in the case of Stephen A., it's like you're for what reason? For what reason are you doing all of this? So look, this is my honest take on the issue. I think that we need to be very careful about the things that we say and try to moderate the temperature. If you notice, even though, I didn't vote for the president, you don't hear me here chastising him or I still give him the proper respect. President Donald, I still do it, right? And I think we need that. There still needs to be some decorum within the way we deal with one another. The minute we just start, this guy, then, the thing turns into an entire jungle. And I still think that you can have opinions on these issues, keep it clean, and you don't have to dive into the deep end where you're just saying nasty things, right? I still give the president his respect as the president because he's the president. So whoever's the next president, you may like him and the next person may not like him, but that still doesn't change the fact that they're the president. I think that at least at the very, if not because you don't like the guy, at least for the office, even if the person you're saying, okay, this guy's not respecting, that's fine. I understand it. But at least for you to be an example, say, okay, I'm going to respect the office because that sets a good example. And it shows people that, look, this is something that needs to be protected and it's sacred. These are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We catch you guys on the next show. Peace.